The Central Bureau of Intimidation was at work today at its worst. Joining us to explain the raid that wasn't is the Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Manish Tewari. This is political vendetta if ever there was any. 2 days after the DMK walks out of your government, you unleash the CBI. Now you can say what you want, but everyone who's watching this broadcast, Manish, will believe only one thing. This was the government's strongest ally at work this morning.
Well, Rahul, allow me to start off by saying that what happened was indeed extremely unfortunate. But in this country, we've been having this debate with regard to the autonomy of the CBI for a fairly long time. And if you recall, when I was a member of parliament, I had also moved a private member's bill with regard to the autonomy and the independence of the CBI. Now, unfortunately, when certain events take place when the environment is politically surcharged, I do not blame people for trying to read political motives into it. But as the finance minister had articulated in the morning, and even the prime minister later on came and gave a statement, that it has never been our intent and it has never been our design to use investigative agencies for political purposes. And this has been evidenced by the fact that during the last 9 years, there is not a single court in India, either constitutional or the courts which superintend the investigations of the CBI, which has ever passed a stricture on the UPA government with regard to its interference into any investigation.
No, but what happened today, Manish,
also cannot be
interference, and it is my case this evening that the CBI delayed and dragged its feet on the case. I want to take our viewers through this note that has been put out by the CBI. This is the Central Bureau of Investigation's own note. It says that the Chennai unit received information on 6th March 2008, 5 years ago. There was no action at all till the 19th of March 2013, the day the DMK made it clear that they might be walking out, and then the case was registered on the 20th, and today there were raids. 5 years the Central Bureau of Investigation has had this information. They've done nothing about it. The moment the DMK walks out, that's when you get active, Manish. What explains this? This is from the CBI's own note.
Rahul, I'm not the Well, first of all, Rahul, I'm not the spokesperson of the Central Bureau of Investigation. But the notes that you referred to, which I have also seen, details the entire chronology of events sequentially. So therefore, while I hold no brief for a particular action which may have taken place advertently or inadvertently, the one thing which I can articulate very, very clearly and with conviction at my command, that the UPA government at the center does not and has never used the investigative agencies for political purposes. And that is something, as I earlier said, is evidenced by the fact that when any investigation has been subject to judicial scrutiny, which is the process under our laws, there have never ever been strictures which have been passed against the UPA
Manish, let
government.
me ask you a counter question. If the CBI officers, if the CBI officers went in and raided Mr. Stalin's house and Aragiri's house this morning off their own accord, if they were doing an independent job, then why did Mr. Chidambaram, Mr. Kamalnath, everybody jump in and say they are dismayed by the raids? And why is it that within moments of the government coming out and saying we are dismayed by the raids, the wrong messages going out, the raids will be misunderstood, the same CBI teams within minutes, and our reporters were present over there, they left the house of Mr. Stalin and Aragiri, they went back home. If they were doing their own job, to take forward your argument, why did they go back after Mr. Chidambaram said he was disapproving the raids?
For the simple reason, Rahul, because when you live in a politically surcharged environment, there is always room for extrapolation. So if the finance minister or the parliamentary affairs minister reacted and put their dismay on record, they were only setting the record straight in terms of conveying it to public perception that it is not our intent to do our politics by these means. And in fact, if you were to take the argument a little further, some of the demands which had been raised by the DMK with regard to the resolution on Sri Lanka in the United Nations Human Rights Commission, we've actually walked the talk. So therefore, I think if somebody's really jumped the gun, and with all due respects to the DMK, they have been our allies. They have weighed in on the same side. I think they should have waited
No,
for the outcome of what
Manish, this is
happened
not
in
about the
Geneva.
UNHRC
Before
resolution.
deciding,
We've debated that adequately
before
on our
deciding
channel.
one
I'm
way or
very
the other.
confused by what you're saying. I'm thoroughly confused. I think everyone watching is confused as well. Do you believe, Minister, that the CBI is an independent body or not? Yes or no? Do you think it's an independent body, or does it act as an adjunct, as the handmaiden of the ruling establishment?
Well, I think the question itself is based upon a fallacious premise. The Central Bureau
Just
of
answer the question,
Investigation
Manish. Is it
acts
an
in terms.
independent body or not?
I'm answering the question. If you have the patience to listen to the answer, then only will I be able to answer your question. And the answer to your question is that the Central Bureau of Investigation acts in terms of the Delhi Police Special Establishment Act, which is the statute which governs its functioning and its investigative powers.
Okay, Manish, if, as you're saying, the CBI does its own thing and it's an independent organization, why then does it panic? If those officers were doing their own independent investigation, even if they'd been sitting for 5 years doing nothing about the complaint that they registered, the complaint that they received on 6th March 2008, and if they woke up this morning and decided that they wanted to raid Stalin Naragiri, why then, the moment the government panicked, did they come back? If you're doing your honest job, if you're doing an independent job, then you say, no, Mr. Chidambaram, no, Mr. Manish Tewari, no, Mr. Kamalnath, we are doing our job. We believe that these cars have been imported illegally and we will confiscate the cars, we'll take action against those who are guilty. They didn't do either. We are very confused, Manish.
Well, Rahul, I think again, you've decided to very selectively, with all due respects to you, read the press release which has been put out by the Central Bureau of Investigation. If I can recall correctly from the top of my head, and I perused the press release
I have it
very superficially, but there is a line in which says that searches are continuing and investigations are underway. So therefore, why do you detract from two very important statements which are contained in that same press release, which you've been citing as the note which has been put out?
There are generalities, there are platitudes, and then there's reality. The reality is, and I can ask our producers to put those pictures out, pictures of the CBI officials going into Stalin's house. Mr. Chidambaram comes on headlines today, says he disapproves of what the CBI has done. Immediately after that, Manish, we see pictures of the same CBI officers emerging from Mr. Stalin's house and going back home. That's the reality. Everything else that's couched in this press release is just someone trying to cover this particular operation, because no one will believe that no one in government knew that the CBI was going to raid Mr. Karunanidhi. This is too politically sensitive a case given the CBI's past track record. It is inconceivable that a joint director level official orders such a big inquiry, such a big raid on the house of your principal ally or former ally.
Well, I think now the charge of platitudes and expletives and extrapolation, I think lies on your door. Because Rahul, while you are entitled to draw your own conclusions and come to your own guesstimates, the fact is that when we read a document, we must read the document in its entirety. And I think it is fair to give everybody the benefit of what they have put out in the public space as being genuine and bona fide.
No, because we are reading the document in its entirety, we are also looking at what happened on the ground. Manish, you're a great lawyer, so you can weave your way out of a tricky situation, which is why the government has fielded you to argue a very, very weak case. There is the argument that you're making, and then there is the reality of CBI officials withdrawing. Now, let me tell you one thing. I have that comment, and I want to take you through what they're saying. They're saying they didn't find the car in Mr. Stalin's house and in Mr. Aragiri's house. Okay, so they went to a particular house, they didn't find the car, and therefore the officials came back. This is what is said in the official press release. If you didn't find the imported car that you were looking for in one farmhouse of Aragiri or in the residence of Mr. Stalin, you could have gone to the other address. Now that entire team was called back, they've been taken off this case. The entire team that went and conducted this raid has been taken off this case. That's the reality. Why did that happen?
Well, Rahul, I began by saying that I am neither the investigating officer of the case nor the spokesperson of the Central Bureau of Investigation. But since you made the generic point about government interference and we using investigating agencies as instrumentalities or handmaidens to really quote from what you had asked me, I want to categorically, once for all, make it clear with all the conviction at my command that that is not the way that we've done our politics. And this is evidenced by the fact that whenever any investigation has translated into a charge sheet and gone to court and a judgment has come, no judgment has either indicted the
Manish,
UPA
just the
or
other day in
passed
the court,
strictures with regard to extraneous
the Supreme
interference
Court said they
or,
didn't
or,
want the
or any
Colgate
unnecessary
investigation.
or unwarranted,
Manish, that's not true. Manish, that is not
or
true.
unwarranted
Just
interference.
last week in the Supreme Court, when the Colgate matter was being heard, the judges said they didn't want the investigation report to be shared with the political executive. They wanted it to be shared directly because what was the subtext of what was said in the court, and you'd bear me out on this, was that the Supreme Court didn't believe that the government was doing an honest job. They were very unhappy with the manner in which action wasn't being taken against the culprits, several of whom are politicians, and the court said, don't share this with the political executive, we will take it directly. That is unprecedented in several senses. It also shows that the Supreme Court didn't believe that the political executive will do an honest job.
Well, Rahul, just to jog your memory a little, is this the first time that the Supreme Court has passed such orders? If I can take you back to the Jain Hawala case, the JMM case, or even the abduction of a lawyer couple, in the early 90s by the Punjab police, which then came up in the Supreme Court. The court on various occasions against various statutory authorities, whether they are central government or state governments, has been passing orders insulating investigation. So it is neither unprecedented nor has it happened for the first time. Continuing mandamus is a process which the Supreme Court has been following over the years.
I have a question from Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, and I must ask this. He says that the reason being given for a CBI raid was the violation of custom duty on the import of cars. But if this is a violation of import duty norms, then it's the custom department's job, not the CBI, to be conducting such raids. The CBI doesn't investigate, he says, custom duty violations.
Well, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal has been a member of the Indian Revenue Service, and I think if he does not want to feign selective amnesia, he would realize that there is a sharing of information which goes on across the board, and at certain points in time, certain other agencies also do step in and carry out independent investigations. So therefore, I do not think the question really lies here or there. Now, if somebody wants to fish and ask a question for the sake of asking a question, he's a politician, he's entitled to do that.
No, but what about Ashwini Kumar, the former CBI director, recently appointed as governor of Nagaland? Now, when the head of the agency is given a post-retirement posting by the central government, that then is the surest indicator of no officer doing a job with honesty and with integrity and with independence, because he wants the government to help him out after he retires. Doesn't that set a very, very wrong precedent, Manish, that an investigating officer is being given a plump post-retirement posting by your government?
Well, I think then if you apply that yardstick, no former director of the Intelligence Bureau, no former secretary of the RAW, no bureaucrat who has held an important position in government, whether he was a cabinet secretary or held any other position, should have been given a post-retirement sinecure, which I think in the case of our principal opposition should extend to the C&AG also. I would like to ask as to who started this entire process of bringing retired C&AGs to Parliament.
No, two wrongs do not make a right, Manish. I'm sorry, that's no argument. If Ashwini Kumar was CBI director, why should he be made governor of Nagaland?
Rahul, I'm not saying that somebody did wrong or somebody did right. All that I'm saying is that it has been a time-honored convention in this country that people who've served in the bureaucracy, who've served in the armed forces, or who've served. So
why don't you set the precedent, Manish? You set the precedent. You say we will not give bureaucrats such post-retirement postings because we are opposed to them ideologically.
Well, in the sense that if there is going to be a consensus across the board that anybody who has served in government
You
should
don't need
not
a
get a
consensus across the board. You can
post-retirement
take a decision.
sinecure,
If the Congress is convinced, you take that decision. If
then we
you
are
are
all right
convinced,
with
you
that
take that
consensus.
decision. Manish,
But to cherry pick,
Manish, this does
but
not
to
require a
cherry pick
two-thirds
a
majority
particular
in Parliament.
appointment
Manish,
and then
this
to
decision does
attribute
not
motives
require
to
a
it,
two-thirds
Rahul,
majority
I
in
think is a
Parliament.
bit
Manish,
unfair and a bit of a stretch.
Manish, this decision does
I
not
said
require a
it's
two-thirds
unfair and a bit of a
majority in
stretch.
Parliament. It's not a constitutional decision. Your government, if it believes in its convictions, can say from tomorrow, no bureaucrat who's been in charge of a sensitive post, which can impact government policy, which can impact crucial cases, will be given a position after he retires. It's a decision you can take. You don't need an all-party consensus for this, Manish.
Yeah, for the simple reason, this means that you are painting everybody with a black brush just because he served government faithfully, diligently for a period of 30 or 35 years, and a certain government feels that his services can be utilized post-retirement also in a certain capacity. Just because he's been a part of government, he should be debarred. Would that not go against the constitutional principles of equality?
Now, what about the principles of morality? Where because someone has been in a key position, he's not given such an assignment. I think morality must reign supreme.
There cannot be one standard of morality for the UPA, Rahul, and another
Each
standard of
person sets
morality
his own
for
standards
everybody
of
else in the political
each
firmament.
person, each institution, each party sets their own standards of morality. Anyway, let me now come to what Jay Panda said. He says the UPA is like Hotel California. You can check in when you like, but you cannot check out, because the CBI is going to come out. It actually does seem that the surest ally, the one staunchest, firmest ally the government has at this time is the CBI. You don't know when Mulayam is going to dump you. You never know when Mayawati might decide to change her mind. The only ally you really have on your side is the CBI.
But I think my friend Mr. Jay Panda should really reflect on the Hotel California syndrome in terms of what the NDA government did to Telka and its promoters when they decided to run them into the ground. So it's very easy, to put out convenient tweets and suffer from selective amnesia without reflecting upon the track record of those they had supported when they were in government and their conduct thereafter. As somebody who's been, the lawyer for some of these guys in the Fukan and the Venkat Swamy Commission, at some point in time, Rahul, I would lead you through that experience, and if it would not be hair-raising, then possibly, I do not know as to how would you define or coin the term hair-raising.
No, but again, what the NDA did, and whether that's right or wrong, does not in any way impact what the Congress government has done. That might have been wrong. I condemn that equally strongly.
That is precisely the point that I've been trying to belabor, which somehow is escaping your attention.
On a negative point, you're drawing equivalence. This is why you should set the moral standard. On a point of negativity, you are drawing equivalence. Mayawati also says that she's been a victim of CBI misuse. Mayawati commented, she slammed the government over CBI searches at Stalin's place. She says this is standard Congress tactic to misuse the CBI. I've suffered it as well, says Mayawati.
Well, in the sense that if you allow me to complete, I am drawing a distinction and repeatedly underscoring the fact that in the past 9 years, can you point to a single stricture passed by any court which says that the UPA government indulged in anything which is called unwarranted interference or extraneous pressure? Yes, in the political firmament, people have different perceptions, they have different opinions. They are entitled to voice them. But the litmus test is eventually when you are tested on the anvil of the court of law. And that's what I have been trying to belabor and point out to you, that could you point to a single instance where there has been a stricture of this kind? And the square answer is no. So therefore, what happened today in the morning, is something which is unfortunate. I do not know whether it was coincidental or there was somebody who was in an overdrive. But let me clearly once again reiterate for your viewers, which the finance minister and other government functionaries have stated since morning, that we do our politics on the basis of programs, policies which are pro-people, and that is our litmus test, and not use the
Last
investigative
evening,
agencies
Manish, on
or
center
other
stage,
instrumentalities
we
of the
broke the
government.
story of Enforcement Directorate officials completing the investigation in the case against Kanimodi. They said early next month the charge sheet will be filed, and we were given extensive details about how the money trail comes back to Kalaina TV, to Kanimodi and to her mother. Now, this is the same Enforcement Directorate which has been accused of dragging its feet for the last several months. The CBI charge sheet in the 2G case came long back. Since then, the ED has been probing, not being able to conclude its probe. The moment the DMK leaves the UPA, the same ED officials say, well, our probe is complete, our charge sheet will be filed a few days from now. See what the CBI is doing, see what the ED is doing. To anyone watching, there is a pattern. The writing is on the wall, Manish.
Well, Rahul, since I was a part of the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and I also had the benefit of the briefings which the Enforcement Directorate had given to the GPC, I would not like to comment on it, but suffice to say that the one thing which needs to be underscored is that if there is somebody who's coming to a certain conclusion, they are doing it based upon whatever material is there in front of
The
them.
same
And
material
at
that
the
they've
end of the
had
day,
access to for the last several years.
at the
They haven't filed their charge sheet.
the end of the day, at the end of the day, a charge sheet is also only a narration of events and facts as best understood by the investigating officer. It is something which needs to be tested on the anvil of the courts of law. So therefore, I think you are trying to mix issues and unnecessarily extrapolate, and tilt at windmills where there is no substance, to the basic charge being made.
Are we tilting at windmills, or is the government not being fully upfront with the truth? 6th of March 2008 is when the complaint was received. The next action taken was on the 19th of March 2013, on the same day that the DMK said they wanted to pull out. Manish Tewari has defended the government's case as best he could. Whether that is an adequate defense or not, we don't sit in on judgment. We allow you, our viewers, to decide where you stand on this. Manish Tewari, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much.
Fair. Thank you very much.